All right. So the octave rule is fairly simple. Over 2 frets, up 2 strings, it gives you an octave. It just works out that way. Now that's in the unwarped fretboard. When we hit the warp, we hit the warp. No matter what we're going to do, once we hit the tuning warp, you see this arrow means tuning warp. This is unwarped. All right, and when it gets warped means, you know, when we get a real guitar going, not just one on paper. Okay, what we're going to get is something that looks like this. And then I'll bring it down like that, and then of course we'll, you know, I'm a good warper. I know how to warp things to make sure that those lines line up a little bit here, a little bit there. That becomes your warped fretboard. And like I say, the tuning difference between this 3 and this 5 string, between this between this string, which is E flat, let's say, and the G string in the key of C, if this is C down here, or over it if it's the key of E. The difference, the tuning warp between the G string and the B string, if R is, oh, it's still in the key of C there. Okay, so considering that E would be the 3rd of C, and the 7th of C would be B, so the tuning warp is between the G string and the B string is only a 3rd. Okay, we wouldn't call it a B string if it wasn't anything but a 3rd, right? And then so what it is if you're going to do an octave into the warp, let's see how it works. Here's octave, over 2, up 2 for octave, root to root, right? Let's zoom in. Root to root is an octave here, but root to this root, oh my goodness, it's not over 2, up 2. It's over 3, up 2. Why? Because this string here, this string, you see how fine this little string is I'm drawing here? That string was, that string is down tuned. So to have the pattern proper, to have the integral proper, since it's down tuned, instead of 5 going to root, like G going to C, instead of G going to C, G is going to the B, because this string is down tuned a half a step compared to the intervals of strings 1, 2, 3, and 4. I call them 1, 2, 3, and 4. Some people start counting backwards. I can't handle that right now. So that is the octave rule. Okay, over 2, up 2, warp. It's not over 3, up 3 because of the warp. Over 2, then you go up and look for your note. You know you're going towards the 5th string. You're going to warp. If you're plunking around, you play and it's wrong, check that you didn't warp it, because it's really sometimes difficult to play the same patterns and then see them as they go for the warp. However, once they do get to the warp, guess what? We can recognize 5R3, that's a D shape right there. You don't have that without the warp. You don't have that D shape without the warp. Okay? You have your E shape because it's below the warp. 5 root 3, here we go, first inversion. 4th, and then a major 3rd. 5 root 3. Alright, but when we're going to the A shape, D, see G, A's back here somewhere. Alright, we start with the C shape, and then we go to the A shape right here, 5 root, but that 3 moved over. See, it's no longer like the E shape over here, 5 root 3, it's 5 root, 3 moved up over to get that same, because now we're not looking for a perfect fourth there, we're looking for a perfect third. You know, we're looking for a major third there. Okay, and that's all this in the key of R, whatever the R is. So now that we know that, we know the octave rule, and then we put it through the warp. Anything we have that we learn in patterns, not in cage shapes, like, hey, play me a cage shape. That's going to be on the real guitar. Like, play me a G shape. That is a G shape. And of course it's shaped like a G chord. But when we're talking patterns here, alright, there's no warp. You got to learn your patterns. They're so easy because they're right here. This is them. This is them. This is the pattern. The only patterns that you have to learn initially. And once these get put together to make the big 7L, right? Where you got, there's one of them here, and then there's one of them down here, and then this guy's up here again, 7R, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that's a warp, so it's on a warp fretboard. We can't talk about patterns that much, except just down on the bottom 4 strings. Okay, so we will back everything up. We're going to talk about what's going on here. Alright? This is called the modal scale stack start points rule. When going up 2 strings, you go down 1 step in the modal scale using the known starting scale degree of the S4L7, the S3XL, the S2L third, and the S3L second. You also find the root 5, 6, and 4 strings. What is this saying? Well, this looks good. R2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's everything, right? And then R again. So this covers everything somehow. This looks good. What's going on here? Every one of these numbers maps to a note here. We have it. Root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does that look like there's a pattern to it? Starting up here, where does this stuff come from now? This stuff comes from the long pattern, the S3L right here, going with an SXL on top of it. So that's why it says S3XL here. We're not showing the whole thing because it's the start points. So it would be 4, root 5, and you're going to take the pattern from there. So we've got an S3XL here and an S4L here. So this is the part of the pattern that we're looking at up here. This square. You can count these guys here. Starting from root, it goes root, down 2 to 2, down 2 to 3. Okay, skip, then skip, and you go to 4, then skip the R to 5, then skip to 6, then skip the next string to 7. So there's a pattern. Root 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's all that's saying. That there's like a pattern to it. Okay, and that, you know, that does help. It helps to know that when something is in perfect fourths, it goes in this pattern, this circle of perfect fourths. Whereas if you skip each string, you're descending down the major scale, at least the scale degrees, the way that they're written. So I'm kind of an expert at finding little patterns like that and trying to, you know, help my playing along. So if you start on like a 7, okay, then 2 strings up, that is 6. because you can see a